In this video, we're going to cover how to complete the shaft support assembly that you see here on the screen. We're going to assemble our base plate, our collar, our cap screws, and our bearing. So let's get started. The first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure you're in the correct template, and then you're going to choose standard IAM, and this is an assembly. So we'll select create. And the first thing you'll notice is there's nothing on the screen. So what we're going to do is we created these parts earlier, and we're now going to take these individual parts and assemble them together. So let's go ahead and start with our first item. So the first thing that we want to select, actually let's hit cancel here, is when we're looking at our assembly, this is our base item. So this is the first thing that we're going to put into our drawing. So let's go ahead and choose place, and let's try to find that base plate. Notice when I select it, you'll see an image here. We're going to go ahead and hit open, and I'm going to change it to isometric so that we can see our part as we place it. The first thing that you want to do is right click, and you're going to place it grounded at origin. And then notice I could place multiple items. I'm just going to hit right click and hit OK. Now, when this is grounded, I want you to notice that it cannot move. It is set in place. And if I come over here to my base plate and I right click, notice there's a check by grounded, which means that this is the base feature. It's grounded in this location. So it's not going to have any degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom are going to make sense here in a moment. So the next piece that we're going to go ahead and place when we're looking at this is this bearing here. Excuse me. Because that's the next piece that would logically be set on this base plate before we would put the collar and obviously the cap screws. So we're going to go back to this assembly. We're going to go to place, and we're going to select our bearing. And again, you'll see it right here, and select open. So this time, instead of right clicking and just hitting grounded, we're going to right click and just hit OK. Because what that allows us to do, oops, did I not click the screen first? Try that one more time. There we go. And we'll right click and hit OK. So what that allows us to do is put this piece in. But right now, as you can see, this one I can freely move anywhere on my screen. And that's called degrees of freedom. So we're going to go to this view, and we're going to turn on our degrees of freedom, this little button here. And notice that each one of these axes is green. So what it's telling us is that this does not have any constraints to keep it from moving up, down, right, left, and rotating it. So to put these two together, we're going to create a relationship between our base piece and our bearing. And it's called a constrain. So we'll go ahead and select constrain. And you do want to watch, actually the video I will place after, but you do want to watch the assembly videos. And that's just going to give you basics of what each one of these types mean. In this video, we're just actually assembling the part. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to mate these two pieces. And we're going to mate them. Notice here in the solutions, we have two different options where the two arrows are going to be opposing, or flush, where the two arrows would be aligned in the same direction. We're going to leave it as a mate. So we're going to select the base feature, and notice that my arrow is located in the up direction. And then I'm going to rotate this, and then I'm going to choose the base, or the bottom of the bearing, and notice that the arrow is moving in the opposite direction. So when I do that, I now have, if I hit apply, I'm going to go ahead and just hit cancel. Notice that now this feature is attached to the surface of this piece. Now it's attached based off of the plane, not based off of the actual physical piece. So if I look at this from the front view, it now no longer goes up and down because I constrained it, those two surfaces, in a mate. But I can move it side to side, and I can also rotate it. Okay, so that's why it's important to turn on this degrees of freedom, especially when you're learning how to place these parts, because you want to make sure that you're placing them in the right way. Otherwise, you're not going to get these assembly models to look the correct way. You know, things may be rotated or turned or the opposite direction. So the next thing that we want to do is we're not done creating these constraints with this part, okay? So we're going to go ahead and go back to our constraint, and we are still going to leave it with a mate and a mate solution here. And now we're going to mate the axes of these two holes. So again, if I go to this hole here, I want to make sure I select the axes. Get close there, keep bumping my hand. There we go. And then I want to select the axes of the center of this hole as well. So see how we have that axis there. And now we'll go ahead and hit apply. And notice, I'm going to hit cancel. Notice now it's constrained not just to the face and the bottom of the face of the bearing, but it's also attached to this axis in that mate command. Okay. See how we can still move it though. So we still have a degree of freedom we have to lock into place. All right, so we'll go ahead and turn our constraints on. And one thing I wanted to show you in this way is you don't have to just pick components of your parts. You can also pick planes of your parts. So for example, if I have this plane, let's make it visible. Let's cancel out of here. We're going to make this plane visible. And that is that vertical plane in my base. And then I'm going to go down to my model here. And I'm going to open up my second piece. Notice that my base plate is the above because it was set first. My bearing is second because it was placed second. So you'll still use this model tree to be able to manipulate these parts. So let's go ahead and turn the YZ on. So what I can also do is I can create this constraint using these two planes as well. So we're going to still keep as a mate and a mate, but this time I'm going to choose my plane. Notice that my arrow on my plane is moving this way. My arrow on my plane is moving that way. So again, they're mating flush. So like, let's look at it from the front. So this plane is mated to this plane. See, this plane for my base plate and the plane from my bearing. If I chose flush, notice the two arrows are going in the same direction, but then look at how it's located on here. So depending on how you have yours laid out and which hole you align first, you may have to manipulate it to flush versus mate. And once that's located, we're going to go ahead and hit apply. And then I'll hit cancel. And now notice, let's go ahead and take the visibility off here. And notice now we don't have any degrees of freedom. So this is fully locked in place. All right. So now let's go ahead and choose our next piece, which is going to be this collar. So I'm going to go ahead and go to place. And let's choose collar. That's this piece here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on my screen and right click and select OK. Now, one of the things you can do is with this piece highlighted, I can do a free rotate, which means I can rotate this in any direction. So like if you wanted to turn it around because for whatever reason, like these two pieces are different, these two sides, and it's just easier for you to visualize. We're actually going to be placing the color in so that this kind of bump out here is going to fit right into place of this bearing. You can very easily just turn these around and then just take your free rotate off. And then again, look how it's just moving. But sometimes, you know, again, you don't visually, you're trying to figure out how to put these together and you may need to manipulate a part. Makes it a little bit easier. So now we're going to go ahead and go to constrain. And the next one we're going to work with is our insert, because we're going to insert this color into this piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose, notice when I get close, I'm choosing this inside circle here of my collar. And then I'm going to choose the inside circle of my bearing. And see how these, let's go ahead and hit apply and see how these now attach together. If I look at it from the front, they're attached by that, but by the two circles that I chose. So if in contrast, let's hit undo. Let's say I came into my constraint and I did my insert and I accidentally chose this circle, which is on the just on that chamfer, and then I chose my inside piece. Okay, so now that chamfer is going to be selected, and I don't know if it'll, oh no, if it actually is going to. Let's try that again. Let's choose this outside one. There we go. And our piece here. Notice that now the location is not quite exactly what we wanted because of how I chose my piece. I didn't choose the correct circular. Again, we want to go to our insert. There we go. And insert, let's say we selected this top circle. So they're going to be inserted along the axes, but notice it's the top of my color and the top of my bearing because those were the circles that I chose. So let's try that one more time. Make sure we choose insert. So we're choosing this circular feature here. There's the axes and this circular feature here. So those are what's going to mate along this axis. And again, look at my arrows, how this arrow is going down, this arrow is going up. So I can select this because if I choose aligned, the arrows are going to go in the same location. So we want to make sure that we leave it in the first option here. You can go ahead and select apply. And now notice the only thing you can still do is spin. You can kind of see that it's spinning. Okay. We want to double check our constraint here. So there you can see that that's the piece, the little bump out is situated inside of our part. Okay. Right, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and place our cap screw. So again, we're going to select it and you'll be able to see it here. And this time we're actually going to put two. So I'm going to click twice because I need two of them. So you don't have to place them in individually. And notice cap screw one, cap screw two. And when I put my cursor over the top, they highlight so you can always know which ones you're working with. Okay. All right, we're going to go to our constrain. We're going to do our insert again, and I'm going to choose the inside circle. You want to be very careful of which one you're choosing. It really doesn't matter in this situation because they're on the same plane here. So either or would work. There's our axes, and we're going to insert it into this piece here. We're going to hit apply, and we're going to do the same thing to this one as well. And hit apply. And let's hit cancel. And again, you can see the only degrees of freedom you have left is the rotation of the screws. But they can't move up, they can't move down, they can't move right, they can't move left. Okay, and we're okay with them rotating because they would actually rotate in real life. If you want to line them up, you can. And that is how you assemble these components.